Hello, Dr. Cornwell. I'm Crystal Stevens, and this is my interpersonal communication final project. Let's talk about communication. What is communication? Communication is best viewed as a continuous, complex, collaborative process of nonverbal and verbal meaning making. What does that mean? That tells us that communication is both verbal, which is spoken, and nonverbal, which is body language, gestures, and cues. Interpersonal communication is the kind or quality of contact that happens when the people involved talk and listen in ways that maximize the personal. So that tells us that it's important for us to understand our basic view of communication because it leaks out into our communication behavior. Next slide. OAG, overarching goal. I realized throughout this course that I have several goals and things that I need to work on in regards to being an effective communicator. And so I'm going to outline a few of those goals. One of my goals is to be an effective listener and to not be a ritual listener. A ritual listener is someone who seems as though they're listening, they seem attentive, but they're actually thinking of their own thoughts and thinking of how they're going to respond to what's being said. Another goal is that I want to be able to listen without disagreeing. And I also want to listen without giving advice. Next slide. I also want to be a better listener and stop trying to get my point across. Oftentimes what I do when people are talking is that I try to make sure that I get my point across, but I'm not really listening and taking the time to get the information that is being presented to me. I need to seek God and make sure that He can help me in achieving these goals because I know that I cannot do this on my own. And so as we communicate with others on a daily basis, we must understand that true interpersonal communication is a skill that is practiced. In order for us to enlarge our conversation, we must acknowledge what our needs are and make sure that we seek ways to improve them. Next slide. Enlarging the conversation. Relationships depend upon conversation and communication. Without communication or conversation, relationships do not have the ability to change, grow, or to develop. And so as I continue to develop my own communication skills, the more my conversations will be enlarged, which will in turn strengthen my personal and professional relationships. It has been my belief that effective communication has merely been to send and receive messages in a conversation. Next slide. But through this course, I have learned that there is much more to communication than just that. Enlarging my conversation means to me that everything that I say and do is a reflection of who I am, and it shapes my relationships with others. Next slide. I've learned that I must first begin my journey of enlarging my conversation by defining who I am. I can be described in many ways. I can be described as a wife, a mother, a student, and a child of God. Next slide. Behavioral blends. What is my behavior blend? My behavior blend is DI. D for driving and determined, and the I is for inspiring and interactive. A person that has a DI behavior blend is someone who is active, extroverted, task and people oriented. There are also strengths and weaknesses to behavior blends, which are known also as personalities. So what are some of my strengths in my personality and behavior blend? I am family oriented, I'm caring, compassionate, and always willing to give of myself to help others. But just like there are strengths, there are also weaknesses. And a few of my weaknesses are that I'm often impatient with people and that I allow my emotions to sometimes overwhelm me. Next slide. Understanding personality patterns is key to a positive and effective relationship. Next slide. Potential barriers. What are some potential barriers to communication? Listening, a person's personality, and underdeveloped communication skills are all barriers to communication. Next slide. When we form our own thoughts and opinions and values of what is being said, that also can be known as a listening barrier. Effective listening will allow you to be able to share with others to be more successful in communication. Next slide. Internal and external noise pollution. Noise pollution is defined as noise that is distracting, annoying, or harmful to others. Internal noise pollution are those things that are inside of us that distract us in communication, and external noise pollution are those things that are outside of us that distract us in communication. Next slide. Burley Allen has given us examples of both internal and external noise pollution. Examples of internal noise pollution are, or can be, personal beliefs, stereotypes, daydreaming, rehearsing what to say next, and identifying with everything that the talker is saying. External examples of noise pollution can be background noises such as traffic or machines, and etc., the room color, televisions, radio, note-taking, as well as answering emails are all examples of noise pollution. And so what are some solutions to make sure that we're not distracted in communication? Making conscious decisions to listen and to reduce physical noise. Avoiding the 6 communication traps outlined for us by Peterson. And the examples of those are being ritual listeners, being a Perry Mason, the why questions, and the yes but. Avoiding those things can help us to be more effective communicators and better listeners. Being able to hear more than just the words that a talker is stating, but being able to listen to the tone, the pitch, and the voice in the communication. All of those things create skilled listeners. Next slide. Plan of action. With everything that people want to change, there always has to be a plan of action. Though that is your roadmap to help you to get to where you're trying to go and to help you to reach the goals that you want to reach. And so my plan of action are steps in helping me to become a better listener. I want to become a better listener and to be more patient with people. I also want to make sure that I'm not being judgmental or criticizing people. For the Bible tells us, do not judge or you will be judged. For the same way that we judge others, we will be judged as well. And so I want to make sure that I'm patient and I create conversations and relationships a little at a time. I've learned that nothing happens overnight. Everything is the process. And so I have to learn how to take it and tackle things a little at a time to make the desired changes that I want to make. Next slide. I'll also let people express their own thoughts and feelings without getting frustrated, irritated, trying to give advice, or disagreeing. And I'll also make sure that I can listen to what the person is saying and try to see things from their point of view instead of my own. Next slide. I will not make assumptions, but rather I will ask questions, paraphrase, and clarify to make sure that I have a clear understanding of what the person is trying to get across to me. And I will be a positive example in communication for my family and others so that they can see the importance in communication in ways that they can enhance their own communication skills. Next slide. I will not only listen to words that are being spoken, but truly listen to what a person is trying to convey to me. I will trust God and depend on the Holy Spirit to use my gifts to enlarge my conversation. Next slide. So in conclusion, we know that communication is always going to be a part of our daily lives. And so in order for us to make sure that we are the most effective communicators, we must first understand how communication works, and secondly, we must know our role in the process in order to make it better. This is my project. Thank you for your attention and your time.